Howdy folks! My wife and I were hiking last week up in the mountains, and it wasn't a rock expedition or anything. We were just going for a long hike that we like to do, and a lot of nondescript rock. Looks like the base rock was fractured at some point, and a lot of parallel looks like cuts. They're not exactly perfectly straight. But there's some that are kind of perpendicular. It's just how I think the base rock cracked at some point. Quartz that filled these cracks. So we've got a lot of these rocks with the white lines running through them, and you can see a bunch here on the bottom of this one. But really nondescript. I mean, just plain milky sort of quartz. But about 1.5 miles or so up the mountain, I spotted something that was sparkly, and so I took a look at it, and found a rock that looks like, I'll bring the camera in a little closer here, but it actually looks like one of these fissures, or one of these cracks, didn't get filled completely, so there was a little bit of a gap here, and where you have those gaps, it looks like crystals were actually able to form, so that's kind of neat. I'm not a huge collector here with a lot of experience, but so these are not huge display sort of crystals, but it's kind of neat, I think. So what I'd like to do is, and you see how this vein actually goes through here, is I'd like to break this apart and see if there's further gaps through here, and see what we can see. You really don't see much other than some sparkly stuff with the naked eye, but looking at it under a magnifier, I'm able to see some nice flat planes and some edges and some corners of some crystal growth. So I'd like to look at that further. Here's one that I found that was actually broken, and I thought, oh well, I was really surprised to see the crystally stuff inside the rock, but what I did notice is that it broke along one of these lines here, so that's why we're seeing the crystally quartz on the edge of this. Here's a close-up of this larger rock, and I almost hate to split it apart because it shows the veins really nice. Most of the veins that we saw on the entire walk were just completely filled, like this one here, with just a milky quartz, so pretty boring. But I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera at all, but with the naked eye and the sun and bright lighting, we can see a lot of sparklies. Sparklies right through this vein, and the gap. So there's definitely a space here. So crystals were able to form in there, albeit very small ones. So I have low expectations, so I get excited with even the small crystals to find them. The lower vein here too actually has, I don't know if you can see it, but right about here you see a spot where there's a little tiny gaps there. But anyways, I almost hate to split this apart because it's a nice example showing all the veins and the gap here and all that, but I want to see what's inside under here to see if the gap is further in the rock also. Now this vein is not perpendicular to the rock face, it actually continues up this way here. So I'm going to try to bust this face off and see what's underneath, and see if we get any interesting crystals under a magnifier or under a microscope. Here's the other smaller rock that I was looking at, and this was actually sticking out of the ground with this top protruding up with all the sparklies, and I thought, well, that rock really shouldn't have that kind of sparkly material, but when I looked at it closer, it did break right on a vein here, so it must have had some gaps where some crystals were able to form, and so that was showing up in the light. So anyways, unfortunately the trail was actually we had a long walk ahead of us. We weren't going straight out, and the rocks were big, and I didn't have a rock hammer, so I just brought a couple home, and so I'm going to bust this apart, and I can get back to that location too. The one spot of the trail seemed to have a number of these rocks right in one spot, so This must have been going on right in that area where there's a little gap in some of the veins there. So I hope to get back up there and get more samples. So let's go ahead and bust this rock apart. Alright, I have my rock hammer and chisel, and what I think I'm going to do, this is kind of the interesting part of the vein. I don't want to break any of the little crystals there, so I think I'm going to try to break it on the back side of the vein here. So let's see if we can get it to split. Alright, that broke. It didn't go through to where I was hoping to free up. It's not a good idea to do this on gravel because it's hard to see what flies off. Alright. Here are the pieces that I broke up. My first impression is a little bit disappointing. This surface actually has a lot of very fine sparkles in it. Some seem to be longer, but nothing real, of a significant crystal size. But we'll look at it under magnification. This one actually looks interesting. I can actually, with my bare eyes, see where there's some nice little faces there. I mean, really small, but I can make out by the eye that maybe even some terminated points. So let's take a look at this with some magnification and see what we have. I think this one's the nicest. Well, let's go ahead and actually look at these under a microscope at something like 20 power and see what they look like. It's hard to get this whole thing in focus because of the depth. So I'm focused near the top, and I'm going to just slowly take the focus down here, and hopefully you can see some of the other crystals come into focus. And when I change the focus on the microscope, it seems to, the camera seems to kind of fight things. So what I'm going to do is just move the specimen around here, and hopefully you can get a good idea of what's on it. I give up. I've been at this for a couple hours. It's just, there's literally hundreds to thousands of crystals when you start looking in all the little crevices, and I broke apart some other pieces a little further, and they just come out of the woodwork. So it's really kind of neat. It's interesting to see a couple of perfect specimen crystals, but what's nice about this is seeing so many of them is you see every variation of this crystal structure. So it's really kind of neat. I've seen crystals with holes in them. I've seen some that are kind of iridescent with some must be iron sort of coatings on them. Different variations of color from clear to white to yellows, browns, and even up to kind of a red. So I really enjoyed it. It was fun to kind of explore through all the crevices of the rocks here. I didn't get any, these are all tiny samples, so I didn't get any coffee table samples that sit on your coffee table. But hey, it was close to home. It was free. You didn't have to pay any mining fees, or it wasn't salted. It was a place that I actually found on my own. So that was a lot of fun. Maybe I can find a piece that had a larger crevice in there, or a larger hole that maybe formed a larger crystal. That would be really cool. Some of these, little spots, you get little holes, and it looks like a little tiny part of a geode kind of thing on the inside. But who knows, maybe I could find something better. So anyways, I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching, and thanks again.